I'm Gavin, and welcome back to the Sound Project. Today I have Jeff Steeg here in the house with us. We are very excited to have you here. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and so we've worked together for a little while now, but maybe start off by letting the audience know a little bit about yourself. Kind of maybe this can be as long or as short as you want it to, but you can kind of tell the tale of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in, originally from Fort Wayne, Indiana. There's a small sound company up there that some people may know of. The funny thing is I had no idea what Sweetwater Sound was until I was a freshman in college.
Wow.
And so people are like, oh yeah, Sweetwater. I'm like, I didn't know.
Yeah.
But originally from Fort Wayne. I make the joke now, and I stole this from our vice president of programming. I'm a saxophone owner. I used to be a saxophone player, but they just look really good stored in the corner now. But that's kind of my background. I was a musician up in Fort Wayne, went to Snyder High School, played in every band you could imagine, and thought, okay, this is the path for me. I'm going to go to college, maybe be a music major. A buddy of mine and I had the pact that, you know what, we're going to Indiana University. When we made the pact, we were like 8 and had glory thoughts of playing basketball. Neither one of us,
Steve Alford,
we wanted to be Steve Alford, Damon Bailey, neither one of us grew over 5'10" and had any real shot at playing basketball. So, but we went down there and I auditioned for the music school. Didn't get in as a musician. So I thought, okay, well, I'm still going down there just because I still loved IU basketball. And so I went down as a business major and, I liked the coursework to an extent, but just wasn't really feeling that direction. My roommate at the time was taking some classes in their recording arts program. And I had a small jazz combo in Fort Wayne at the time, and we had made a CD at the local NPR station with one of our friends' dads. So I was like, I don't know, this looks kind of interesting. So I started picking up the books. I'm like, I think I could probably figure this out. So went back as a sophomore and did the introductory classes and got accepted into the program. And that all of a sudden a whole other world opened up, and was doing recording all the time and just really kind of found what I was good at. So finished at IU and was fortunate enough to get a job at Sweetwater, working as a recording engineer. And at that point when I started, they had moved the sales team into their current location on US 30, but the recording studio was still at their old Bass Road location.
Right.
So it was kind of an interesting timing, and it would be kind of a precursor for my current role, where we moved from the old location into the new studios, which are now not so new anymore.
Right.
But so being a part of that team to move over was really kind of cool, and be a part of a new building and get to see it from the ground up, and then learn the intricacies of it and go, okay, well, what if we did that? What different things there. So spent a few years at Sweetwater, and then the Allied Solutions Center was being built at the time here in Carmel, and my wife's family has been in Carmel since I think 96.
Okay.
And so we'd kind of known about it, and it was really one of those, oh, that'd be great if kind of jobs. Like, maybe, but who knows? Well, then we get a call from Michael Feinstein at Sweetwater, who wanted to do a CD with the Carmel Symphony Orchestra, and they wanted it recorded in the area here in Hamilton County, and they asked if Sweetwater would bid on the project. And so because the studio manager at the time knew I had a tie to Carmel, he's like, hey, why don't you take this and spec out the system, put together the pricing, how long you think it's going to take, do some site visits. So I was like, okay. It really wasn't something that we did at the time. But it was kind of like, all right, well, let's go, be a part of the project. So we put the system together. We ended up coming down to Westfield High School and recording in the auditorium. And I think you and I had met before that at Sweetwater.
Yes.
But we ran into some issues because we were using one of the dressing rooms as a vocal booth.
Yeah.
Which wasn't really designed as a vocal booth, surprisingly.
Sure.
So I think we called you up and said, hey, we need some help here with some acoustics. And you brought out a lot of different stuff from Orlex, and that helped us out there. But what I didn't know at the time was that the original director of production for the center was in the remote booth that we had set up for kind of the producer side of things. And I get a nudge and hey, you should think about applying for this new audio role that they're posting tonight. This is from Michael Feinstein's production manager at the time. And I said, I don't know, I'll think about it. They didn't know I'd already turned in 2 resumes to info@carmel.and.gov before it was even a thing. And so I went home that night, kind of touched up my resume again and sent it in. And it felt like there was 2 or 3 weeks that went by. I don't think that's the exact amount of time, but it felt like forever. And I got a call back and came down to Carmel, met with the director of production and thought, I completely bombed this interview. There's no way I'm going to get this role. And again, it felt like eternity went by. But then I got a call back and said, hey, we would like to bring it down again. Like, okay, great. Came down again, interviewed, thought I did okay, better. And then they offered me the role like a week or so later. And I started on October 11th, 2010.
Wow.
And was employee number, I think I'm 33 technically in the organization. And have just kind of grown from there. I ran the audio department for just about 3 years with the organization. Then I moved up to run the production department for about 3 years. Then I moved up to run operations for the center. And then most recently into my current role in 2022 as a chief operating officer. So it's been a really interesting journey and not your, I would say, typical lead audio engineer path.
Yeah.
But I've been very fortunate along the way and to grow with the organization and to open 3 beautiful venues in a 9-month time span in 2011. Was a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, I mean, you've probably seen so much growth in that organization over the time. And, I know that you think you'd give me a tour of the Palladium. I can't remember when that was. It feels like around.
It was probably around 11.
2011, 2012 or something like that. And it's just a beautiful space. Always has great events going on there, and then most recently you went through a sound system upgrade.
We did, yeah. So the Palladium, when it was built, it was Artec Consultants out of New York. Did all the theatrical systems and the sound design for not only the Palladium but also the studio and the Tarkington Theater. They did the entire campus. Now, that's one consultant for the entire campus. Completely different vendors for every different room.
Oh, wow.
So that posed some interesting, they did a really good job at kind of some design overview. So a lot of things were structured very similar, but each vendor has their own kind of take on how they do things.
Sure.
So a little bit of learning curve there. But in the Palladium specifically, really the entire building was designed with the mayor of Carmel's input and Artec using what information they had at the time, which really the room is built very acoustically sound. I mean, it sounds fantastic for non-amplified music.
Yep.
And so that was kind of the guideline they were going under when they built the initial sound system. Really more of a reinforcement system than an amplified system, and which was great. That system did exactly what it needed to do for that role. And then I joke, and then we had Darius Rucker. Not so much a reinforcement, but more an amplified. And so we learned very quickly that we needed to change. And I think one of the things moving down here into the Carmel, Indianapolis area is I didn't have a lot of those connections. In Fort Wayne, I developed, some pretty good connections, especially working at Sweetwater.
Yes.
I mean, 400 people you could walk across all and go, hey, what do you think?
Yeah.
But here I didn't have a lot of those connections. So I've reached out to Mid-America Sound, who I had known since college, and there's a strong IU connection here in the area, which is good. But really leaned on a lot of the great engineers here in the area to kind of help me through this. And so there was some funding left over at the end of the project initially that we were able to augment the initial design to work for what we needed it to do, which was really a heavy amplified season. with still the ability to do non-amplified music. And so we did an augmentation in probably it was September of 2011. So we didn't really live with the initial system very long before we realized we needed to change. And then that system existed all the way through current day until we changed it. And, we went through probably 11 seasons with that system, and it did very well for what we needed. But it's technology.
Yeah.
So, you don't have the same iPhone you did 11 years ago.
Right.
Sometimes not even a year ago in instances. So just from a technology standpoint, we knew we needed to upgrade, and we knew that the speakers that were available now were far and away. Yeah. You could do no other changes, no other acoustic treatments, no other tunings, and you just put a newer box in there. Yeah. It was automatically going to sound better.
Yeah.
So we actually started the process in 2019 and initially had kind of an internal RFP process where we knew we wanted to get information from an L Acoustics, a Meyer, D&B, Claire. We just wanted to spread a wide kind of net and just get an understanding of what we were looking at pricing wise.
Sure.
Then we were kind of moving forward with that to then present to the city and go, hey, here's some options. Well, then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And, our focus shifted dramatically away from a new speaker system to, let's just sustain ourselves here. And we were very fortunate as an organization that we kept everyone employed and really kind of used that time to change gears for a time.
Yeah, that's actually always something that I've been interested in hearing your perspective of this is going through COVID as a live music venue. Like,
the
what was that
worst
like?
business model you could have in a respiratory pandemic.
Yeah.
And for us, it was kind of an Apollo 13 moment. Like we can either crumble from this or no, we will shine through this and come out of it ahead. And we really kind of dug in as a staff and said, okay, what can we do here? And, we did have probably 2 or 3 months there from March to June where really we weren't closed, but nobody was really working on site. We're all remote, which luckily not really planning for a pandemic because you don't.
No.
We had already been transitioning most of our staff over to laptops.
No. Yeah.
For the longest time, we were just replacing desktop with desktop with desktop.
Yeah.
We decided, in about 17 that, let's start moving to laptops. People are getting a little bit more portable, so let's do that. So really, we only had a few staff members that we had to physically move their desktop home for them. But we kind of took the time and said, okay, what have we always wanted to do that we could never have time to do? Maintenance, period.
Yeah.
And some organization and things like that. And then, okay, let's look at our systems and really go, what do we need to set ourselves up for the next 10 years? So we jumped into streaming and we invested in some cameras and, some infrastructure there and really became kind of this home for business meetings.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of companies who after July of 20 decided, we're going to start not really going back into the office, but we need to bring people together in some way, shape, or form. So in the Palladium, it's 1,500 seats. Well, if you're a business of 100 people, you probably don't have a conference room, A, that's big enough, and B, if it was, legally at that point, you couldn't have that many people in that close proximity. Well, we can spread 100 people out in a 1,500 seat concert hall.
Yeah.
And so we did a lot of, we had a meeting with Klipsch, and we had a meeting with, a lot of local companies that just needed some place that they could bring people in.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of dubbed the COVID czar, I guess, in our organization.
That sounds positive, but maybe. I don't know.
I don't know, but it was really kind of an interesting time because there's no playbook.
Yeah.
So we really kind of dug in and it's like, okay, well, let's figure out how to do this. And you had a lot of orders coming down from the governor's office and okay, here's what you can do. And we worked heavily with local health department. And I was on a weekly call with my peers at other arts organizations, the ISO at Clues Hall at Butler and, just other things of like, okay, how are we going to figure this out?
Yeah.
And we all kind of came up with a similar plan and kind of put it in place. And so we did business meetings. We did tapings a lot. There were a lot of choirs who or bands that could socially distance themselves across our hall, and we did live tapings.
Yeah.
We started a series called Live at the Center, and it was a way to kind of give back to local musicians who had no opportunity to play.
Yeah.
And we could put them on our stages, no audience, but we did a full live stream and they got the full recording of it afterwards and could kind of use that as marketing on their own. And that series still exists, and now we're able to bring audiences back, obviously, over the last few years. And it's just a nice local flair that grew out of something that could have been just a horrendous time. And it was for many.
Yeah.
But we were very fortunate to be able to kind of keep the doors open and keep working.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of flashing back to that time. Back then it was just myself and Oscar. It was just the two of us. We had a small office here. And I had a table I set up in my son's bedroom, like during the day, because I didn't have an office at home. And then eventually I started going back to the office pretty early because no one else was in the building anyway, you know, but yeah, you just kind of, you don't, like you said, there's no playbook for that. And so you just kind of do what you can.
Yeah.
So after all of that, then, so you started in 2019 with like the idea of getting a new sound system, and then it kind of really started kicking off.
Then it geared up, and we came out of COVID, and 21 we had a minimal schedule, but we were still back, doing shows with audiences. And then it was really 2022 that it's like, okay, now we're stable again, doing really more normalcy of what we're doing. And so we approached the city of Carmel and the Carmel Redevelopment Commission and said, hey, look, here's where we're at. And, we had a system that worked really well in the building, but we were actually starting to see it from the artist's side, where in their writers, as they were sending them to us, our speakers started to be specifically outlined as not accepted,
Right.
And before it was always like, no XYZ or no ABC. And you're like, okay, we can work around that. It's like, no My or Micah, it's like, oh, okay. And that's all we have.
Yeah.
So, we really took that time and said, okay, went to the city and said, we need to start thinking about this because it's going to be something that's going to start impacting our business.
Yeah.
And I think it was just really good timing in terms of where we were at as an organization, where the city was, where the Carmel Redevelopment Commission was, just in their whole planning process, that it's like, okay, yeah, let's do this. And so we put a proposal together with the city to not only do our PA system in the Palladium, but we also needed to upgrade our lighting system as well. It was in the same vein, 13, 14 years old at that point.
Yeah.
So we put both of those together and really kind of said, look, we don't know how this officially should go.
Yeah.
That's where your expertise is. And our expertise is really more on the technical side about what we want, how it needs to work and everything. So we had we have a really great partnership with both entities of, it's this nice balance of the CRC helps us handle all of the, governmental legalities that you have to go through for a project of this size.
Sure.
And they understand that we know here's really how it should be and what is what we're looking for. So Jeff McDermott and I, our president and CEO, went in front of the Carmel Council in September of 22 and pitched the idea initially. And then it took almost a full year to go through the process. And, we were able to start on a few things. And then we put out our idea of, okay, here's the lighting system was going to be a little bit different because we knew we want exactly this piece and that part in this quantity.
Yeah.
We really just needed quotes. But on the sound side, we had a good idea about what we wanted.
Yeah.
But we wanted them, the vendors, to tell us, here's what would work best.
Yeah.
Because we now have exactly what we are as an organization from a performance standpoint, from the genres that we offer and the density that we offer. And the other kind of unique thing in the Palladium is we have a literal glass ceiling.
Yes.
I mean, there's no other way around it.
Yeah.
It's our acoustic canopy, which is great, but we don't allow any outside rigging because it's a glass ceiling. You don't want a chain to get hung up on something and glass rains down on a load in. It's not a good business opportunity.
That'd be a bad day.
Yeah.
That'd be a bad day.
And so anything that we're doing, it has to be, it's the only PA system that's in the room.
Yeah.
That we're not bringing in a different racks and stacks every day.
Mm-hmm.
So it had to be versatile.
Mm-hmm.
And so we formed a technical committee, of which you were my first call to join, because I know we needed to do some acoustical analysis on top of it.
Right.
Because the initial analysis was done with a different set of parameters.
Right.
I mean, a different business model, a different, everything that we were doing was just different.
Yes.
So let's look at the room again. We had also done some adjustments on our own. We'd added stage carpet. We had added some additional curtains. And so it was just different.
Yeah.
So we knew we wanted to do the acoustic treatment. And then the committee also consisted of a local architect who could provide some of that side of things in terms of structural ability and everything, and formed this committee, put together kind of our plan. And the first plan was acoustical testing.
Yeah.
And then our next part was going to be an RFP that the acoustical testing would be a part of.
Yeah, that was a fun day. It's a pretty long day.
Yeah.
lots of testing positions, but not only, I think we did 19 or 20 positions throughout, but then on top of that, it was like different scenarios, because you do have the curtains that can open and close, and you do have the carpet that can be added or removed on the stage. And we wanted to test every location with whatever configuration you could potentially use. And it's just really interesting, like the kind of information we got back as far as obviously reverb time we look at a lot in there, but then just if there's any focused reflections that are happening, speech intelligibility metrics for, if how well people understand speech, and all these things that play into the events that you have. So we did that, and then at the same time, we ended up partnering with a local company to do the 3D scanning of the whole space,
which was, when we got that back, that was just amazing.
Yeah,
yeah.
We actually have a podcast with Matt Crowder from Immersafe as well. But he came in. I think that was a 1 or 2 day. It might have been a 2 day type of thing to just get really accurate dimensions, because there's blueprints available, but not like a 3D representation, which helped with our acoustical models, which then fed into the testing. It was just a really kind of fun process.
And then we've used that kind of going forward, and we can send that out to artists.
Yeah.
Because early on, that was the biggest thing. I mean, new venue, nobody's ever been there, and you're like, okay, it's a European style concert hall, 1,500 seats, and they're like, what?
Yes.
Like, okay, it's not a theater, and it's not an arena, but it's somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's just the amount of talking you had to do ahead of it. And now, we've got obviously a lot of pictures, but now we send the 3D rendering out and go, here's the room, put yourself wherever you want, and you can see exactly the vantage points and all that.
Super helpful.
So it's been a really good tool.
Yeah. So all that information that we gathered, we supplied that to the potential vendors that were going to be doing the sound system design.
Yeah. And they, I think that gave them just a complete different launching point for the project, because they could then enter that into whatever speaker manufacturer software they were using, and you automatically had a built venue.
Yeah.
Instead of, okay, we're going to put speakers in the air in here's what it kind of is.
Yeah.
No, here's the exact room and drop it in. And the responses we got back from it were that much more accurate because of that.
Yeah.
And we had an initial thought with the whole project of, okay, we're going to do some acoustic treatment and we're going to do a PA system.
Yes.
Well, as we started to get the numbers back, it's like, okay, the budget we had versus what we wanted to accomplish just didn't match up.
Sure.
So we decided, okay, let's focus purely on the speaker system.
Yep. Because
we knew, kind of like we were talking about earlier, you could put a brand new box in here and do nothing, and it's going to sound better.
For sure.
So let's go get the best PA system we can afford. And then the acoustic treatment is just the icing on the cake when we have a budget to go do that.
For sure.
And so that kind of, we altered the RFP to reflect that and sent it out and got some good responses back. I mean, we had, I want to say we had 3 or 4 different companies who replied, and 4 different speaker systems that we were looking at.
Yeah.
And, we knew we wanted, we were a Meyer house already, so we knew we wanted a Meyer bid, and we knew we wanted an L Acoustics bid. We knew we wanted a D&B bid. And we were fortunate. We got all 3, and a couple different variations on one of them.
Yeah.
So then it became, okay, how is this all going to work? Because I think the great part we are at in the industry is they're all pretty similar.
Yes.
I mean, you're not like, oh, that one's just automatically bad because it's a blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
No. I mean, they're all pretty similar. And I think the same thing in the studio monitor world too. It's like,
you get to a certain level and it's hard to, it's more personal preference than anything else.
Right. Do you like the wood grain one or do you like the black one?
Yeah.
You know, kind of thing. And so that made it really difficult for us in deciding which one we ultimately wanted to go with. And, but I think using some acoustic data and just, you know, pitching some of these ideas back and forth, and we would have, you know, the official technical review committee, but then I would be talking with our lead audio engineer, our technical director in the Palladium, our assistant production director at the time, and going, okay, what's going to work best for us, and how do we run through some of these scenarios in terms of, okay, we're going to have a classical show on Thursday, we're going to have a pop show on Friday, a songbook show on Saturday, and then a rock show on Sunday. Which of these systems is going to work the best?
Yeah.
And ultimately we landed with an L-acoustic system, which was put together by another local vendor, Force Technologies here, in partnership with Mid-America Sound.
Yes.
And it's kind of a full circle moment. You know, you and I met early on in the project. AJ and I at Force met a couple years later as we were looking at a different project. And then I've known Jason since, like I said, since college, from that perspective. So for that one to be the one that ultimately won, it was kind of like, oh, okay. We get to work with all of our friends.
Yes.
And
I love the process though, because I was on that technical committee and I don't think ever been on something like that before, but just having all the companies put together their plans, and all of them were great. But then there's just certain aspects of some of the plans that's just like, oh, that makes more sense, or, you know, and then, I wasn't a voting member of that committee, but I just gave my input on things. But I just thought that it was really well done, because you know, I think every little angle was looked at to make the best decision for your organization. Right.
And, you know, the key factors we were looking at is, you know, we wanted it to be a system that covered every seat in the house. We knew before there were some soft areas, if you will. We wanted to cover every area in the house, and we wanted it to be a smooth coverage across, so that as you're moving between seats, you don't really notice the change. And so that we, you know, kind of landed on that bid. But then we had a timing thing, because we made those decisions in August of 23. But we're a concert venue. So we went, you know, September of every year really starts our season. And we don't have time to go dark.
Just shut down.
You know, and for us, it was a major change, because we were going from a powered speaker system to a passive speaker system. Different cabling, different, and you got amplifier, you got all this stuff that you have to figure out, okay, this is a big change. So we had, as a part of the process, we had blocked out June of 24 to be completely dark. And we actually had to plan that 2 years in advance. And so it was kind of, the lighting project progressed, and it was easy for us to just, as pieces came in, we could take the old ones out and put the new ones in. So it was kind of this multi-stage process of installation where some new lights would come in, and it's like, oh, those are pretty cool. You know, some more new lights. Oh, okay, those are really cool. And by the end of our season in early 24, the lighting was fantastic. I mean, what our guys are doing there now is just, it's amazing. And they're also like kids in a candy store. Like, here's all the new stuff. Like, let's get it out there. But the sound system it was like, okay, all right,
we're waiting.
You know, we're waiting. You know, we get updates from AJ and his team of, okay, speakers showed up at Mid-America. Okay, great. We're not going to see him for a couple months. So, you know, or, you know, amplifiers. Okay, great. You know, and so there's all this stuff, you know, they did a really great job at timing it all out so that it all arrived in their shop. They tested it before they came out. They did all sorts of testing with the existing cabling we had to see what can we still use. And they actually ended up using almost all of the existing cabling and just putting new ends on it. So then June of this year hits, and we take the old system out for the last time. Our technical director in the Palladium, Ben, actually took a video and played taps along with it.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's kind of that's right.
Fashion.
A nice decommissioning of the system. And then for 2 weeks, it was AJ and his team showed up and speakers started going in the air. Cabling was being done. They were doing testing. And I remember I was getting ready to go on vacation. And Alex Moon was our project manager on the job, and said, Alex, if there's any way, because I knew that they had speakers wired, I'm like, is there any way you could turn the system on and just run a song through it so I can hear it before I leave?
Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, sure. So the speakers were, flown in the stack, but the stack was touching the stage.
Yes.
Like no positioning,
Sure.
no, none of it was done. But he's like, here, all right, let's fire this up. And it was, in the absolute wrong position and all of the factors taken, it sounded amazing.
Yeah.
It was like,
yeah, all of this was worth it.
Yeah. And so then we kind of finished that up, and in July we had our first show on it. Actually, June we had our first show. It was a bodybuilding competition, which is a really great test for a PA system. Yeah. It passed with flying colors. And then we had our Songbook Academy in July, which is 40 high school vocalists with a rhythm section. So it's like, all right, here we go. Yeah. Speech intelligibility, mixing capability, and all this. And it was a complete eye-opening experience. Like, it was a brand new venue.
That's awesome.
It was really awesome to hear it in its full glory. And, then as we've done more shows on it, we've learned a lot. Yeah. Rob Glass is our lead audio engineer, and Ben Dobler, who's our technical director. We've all mixed on the old system.
Sure.
And knew its little quirks and intricacies, and okay, you got to dip 400 and you got to cut 200 a little bit.
Yeah.
We had to they had, I don't do a lot of mixing anymore.
Yeah, sure.
That's
is
part
what
of
it is.
Is what it is.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like, we had to forget all of what we thought we knew about the room, because it's different now.
It's different. Yeah.
It's the clarity in the system and all that just completely changed.
Yeah.
But it's been fun because it's, they're having a lot of fun relearning and kind of experiencing the Palladium all over again.
Right.
So yeah,
that's great. What a journey and you were there the entire time and seeing all of it. And, it probably took longer than you would have liked it to, but you're here now.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah, and, have you got any feedback from like artists that come through there or anything?
A lot of positive feedback. Not so much from the artist standpoint, but we feel it on stage it's very clean.
Yeah.
And so I guess the non-feedback is feedback.
Yeah, for sure.
But from the patron perspective, we have gotten a ton of rave reviews about it. And we did a lot of messaging during our last season of, hey, really want to thank the City of Carmel and the Carmel Redevelopment Commission. We're going to have a new PA system for next season. Really excited about it. So we had talked it up a lot.
Yeah.
And so we kind of had to hit.
Yeah.
You couldn't be like a
yeah.
And so that Songbook Academy performance in July was really the first taste for the public to be able to see it.
Yeah.
Hear it, see it. Hear
yes.
it. They could see it too. It looks really nice.
It does.
And the people who came out of that show are regulars. They come every year. Yeah. So they've seen the system, they've heard the system for years, and they were all like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The clarity, the diction that you could hear in everybody's voice and everything was just, it's been really good.
Yeah.
And the tough part is, this, sound is subjective.
For sure.
What you think sounds good, what I think sounds good, two completely different things.
Yeah.
And, so the complaints of, oh, well, it doesn't sound good. Okay. Could you give me some more information?
Yeah.
Well, it just doesn't sound good. Okay. Well, you can only do so much with that.
Right.
But we haven't gotten any of those.
That's great. Yeah, I'm really excited for you guys. Do you have anything like what's the next thing you're trying to do?
Yeah. So we have one final piece of equipment or a couple pieces of equipment that are going in on the Palladium system. We're expecting those to happen in July, and that will fully complete the project. Nice. There were some things that you don't notice until you get in there and you listen to it. It's like, oh, we could add a speaker here and a speaker there, and it's really going to be great.
Yeah.
So that's for that one. And then next we're focusing on the Tarkington, which was our 500 seat theater, and sound and lights there. And then the studio, same kind of thing. And then, we have a 10-year capital plan that we're always adjusting.
Sure.
But just have a roadmap of, okay, Focus was in the Palladium, that's a Tarkington studio, and we're kind of rotating around to hit all those systems as much as we can. Because you have to nowadays,
right.
And it's you don't want to say keeping up with the Joneses, but if we're going to continue to be a world-class venue, we have to be able to offer world-class performances.
Yeah. Well, I think you're in a really good position for that, and I'm excited to see. I want to definitely come check out some shows here soon. And
love to have you.
Yeah. But thanks again, too, for joining us on the podcast and telling this journey, because it's really fascinating as far as, I'm sure any other people that work at venues and they know this struggle.
Yep, they've been there. Yep,
you're now on the other side of it. So,
right.
Yeah, but thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely, it was a pleasure.
That's been another episode of the S.O.U.N.D Project. Thanks for being a part of it. I'm curious if you have a favorite speaker system that you like to listen to. Comment that below, and we'll see you next week.